Honorables invités, chers participants à ce dialogue, j'espère bien que ce quart d'heure pédagogique ou andragogique vous a permis.
So we hope that in the meantime you were able to get to know each other and share your contact addresses. We will kickstart our procedure soon. Well, Mr. Governor Tempa, the representative of the government of Burkina Faso, Mr. Dominique Matonde, President of the Council of Consultation of Non-NGOs of Congo, the representative of the hub of the executive of the ADB, distinguished representative of civil society, members of the diaspora, distinguished girls. Distinguished guests, all protocol observed. Good afternoon, good day, and like we say in Brazzaville, Bote na bino. Distinguished guests, our journey in the calm rivers of Ubangi will be structured in 3 phases. First of all, we will have an opening session which will be precise and strategic indeed. Secondly, we will entertain a high-level dialogue with special personalities that we have gathered who will help us to transit from concepts to a personalization of ideas. That will be followed by a closing session comprising reminder and declaration of Brazzaville, as well as final statement by the African Development Bank. Distinguished guests, honorable guests, as we get ready for takeoff, some housekeeping. Given that we are on the banks of the majestic Congo River. We are being followed on YouTube, on ADB digital platform, LinkedIn, hashtag, and various other digital platforms. And before we start proper, we would like to welcome you all here in this meeting room. We would also like to welcome the several persons attending from the various platforms from various cities of Africa. Kindly note that interpretation is available in English and French, and we will, without any further ado, proceed to our first session, the official session, which is a welcome address delivered by Mr. Dominique Matondo, whom I would call up to the high table here. Mr. Dominique Matondo is the head of the Board of Consultation of Association of NGOs of Congo. He will deliver the official welcome address at this dialogue framework. A kind and thunderous applause for him as he walks up majestically to the high table. The President of the African Development Bank, the governors of the African Development Bank, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol respected. Mbote na beno nyoso. Good day to you all. I am particularly moved and honored to take the floor on behalf of Congolese civil society to wish you the most hearty welcome to Brazzaville, the capital of the Republic of Congo, land of hospitality, dialogue, and peace, on the occasion of the annual meetings of the African Development Bank in 2026. Your presence among us is a show of the honor you have for our country and your kind thoughts about Congolese civil society. Congo opens to you their doors, but also its heart. Indeed, In African tradition, welcoming someone is an act of brotherliness, gratefulness, and gratitude. Allow me to extend, therefore, our profound gratitude to the government and to the people of Congo for their relentless effort made to ensure that our country hosts this major gathering about Africa's financing. We also want to extend our sincere congratulations to Mr. Sidi Ouita, the president of the African Development Bank Group, as well as to all governors for the renewed trust on our country, as well as the honor bestowed on Brazzaville for hosting this major continental event. Welcome to our country. Welcome to your country, distinguished guests. Ladies, gentlemen, the theme of this annual meetings, the theme of these annual meetings devoted to mobilizing financing to Africa directly appeals to our collective responsibility against a backdrop of economic tensions, climatic challenges, vulnerabilities pertaining to the debt, and the huge challenges posed by our young people. Africa must henceforth count on its strength, spirit of solidarity, and capacities to innovate. In this context, African civil society, as well as their diaspora, are necessary and critical partners, given their capacities to mobilize, given their capacity to showcase their commitments towards enhancing transparency, accountability, and efficiency of public policies. Congolese civil society therefore reaffirms its will to support every effort aimed at mobilizing sustainable resources, aimed at promoting good governance and ensuring that the mobilized funds create concrete impacts in the livelihoods of people in cities and even in the most remote rural areas. We commend the Pan-African vision of Mr. Sidi Ouita, as well as the advent of the new African financial architecture for development, to which we commit to contribute actively through its community and citizen-based anchoring. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not mere onlookers. We are partners. We are builders. We are solution-driven players. The Africa we are looking forward to will be made within our institutions, in our villages, in the neighborhoods, in the places where our people live, work, and entertain every hope. We wish that Brazzaville, a city of peace, a city of dialogue, should, during these annual meetings, be the symbol of an Africa that comes together and that together strives to obtain concrete solutions for its future. Long live the African Development Bank, long live civil society, long live solidarity between peoples of Africa and their diaspora. And I hope that we will achieve successful outcomes at this meeting. Thank you for your kind attention. Matondo Mingi. Thank you very much for your address. Thank you so much. Now, we would like to welcome the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Sidi Ouita. But also, allow me to project at this juncture a short video that we will all watch. I hope that the technicians are ready.
Existé. Elle s'est battue. Elle a construit. Depuis des décennies, on dit que le continent est pauvre. Il n'est pas pauvre. Des agriculteurs nourrissent leur communauté. Des femmes créent les entreprises et font vivre leur famille. De jeunes entrepreneurs inventent de nouveaux business. Tout cela, même si le système financier dans lequel ils évoluent ne les soutient pas.
Nous devons innover en matière de mobilisation de ressources de financement pour pouvoir répondre à la demande africaine. Nous avons besoin de développer l'esprit d'équipe et l'esprit de partenariat avec tous nos partenaires du secteur privé, du secteur public, des institutions multilatérales de financement et de développement, des institutions bilatérales, des fonds de pension, des fonds souverains, et j'en passe. La banque à elle seule ne peut pas tout faire. Ce n'est qu'avec les partenariats que nous pouvons réellement répondre aux attentes des populations africaines.
L'architecture financière mondiale est construite pour que l'Afrique ne puisse pas bénéficier pleinement de ses ressources, mais exporte plutôt ses ressources financières et les importe à des taux beaucoup plus élevés.
Governments are making impossible trade-offs between servicing their debt and investing in their citizens. Africa is being priced out of capital. African borrowing surged by 91% at a time when we're trying to reduce the cost of financing.
Ce système doit changer. La nouvelle architecture financière africaine pour le développement peut être le moteur de ce changement.
Interroger le système financier africain, c'est interroger notre souveraineté économique. C'est constater que depuis les indépendances, l'Afrique peine à disposer d'un système capable de financer ses ambitions et de résister aux chocs extérieurs.
Mais aucun système financier ne peut changer sans impliquer les personnes qui l'utilisent.
Une architecture financière qui n'est pas comprise, qui n'est pas suivie, qui n'est pas questionnée par les citoyens est une architecture fragile. La société civile, la diaspora et la philanthropie doivent diffuser l'information, nourrir le débat public, jouer un rôle de veille et soutenir des mécanismes de transparence.
La banque a fait le choix de positionner la société civile comme un partenaire stratégique dans la définition et la mise en œuvre de ses priorités. Les organisations de la société civile assurent un ancrage communautaire solide, renforcent la redevabilité, traduisent les orientations stratégiques en solutions concrètes au niveau local.
Les OSC peuvent être des arbitres de la NAFAD, une vigie bienveillante, un articulateur au niveau territorial, à l'image d'une VAR que nous proposons, d'une NAFAD Watch, un véritable observatoire qui permettrait la mise en œuvre de la NAFAD au niveau local et faire remonter aussi les perceptions, les défis et les réalités.
Le dialogue a commencé, qu'il se poursuive aujourd'hui. Que cette session soit riche de nos échanges, qu'elle nous permette de construire l'Afrique de demain, une Afrique dans laquelle les Africains vivront plus prospères. Bienvenue à l'événement de la société civile. Bienvenue aux assemblées annuelles 2026 du groupe de la Banque africaine de développement.
Merci pour vos applaudissements.
Thank you for your applause. That confirms that you are aligned with these messages passed through this video. Dr. Sidi Ota, President of the African Development Bank. Distinguished guests, it is often said that there are times where history speeds up events, and Africa is experiencing such moments. It is leading, Africa is leading towards major changes, and we're about to open this major aspect of the work of civil society, the contribution of civil society. This has been always long awaited. And the President of the African Development Bank is here to mark that turn of events. Mr. President of the African Development Bank, permit me, on behalf of all participants, to once again reiterate to you our every congratulations to being awarded the Medal of Commander of the Republic of Congo. So it is clearly On behalf of us all, that I would like to call on Dr. Sidi Ulta, President of the African Development Bank, to kindly mount the rostrum with your applause to deliver the official opening speech of this ceremony.
Mesdames, Messieurs les gouverneurs,
Distinguished governors, board members, dear representatives of civil society, of members of the philanthropic societies and African diaspora, ladies and gentlemen, I am particularly pleased to see you here again this afternoon in Brazzaville during the annual meetings of the African Development Bank. I see this as an opportunity to meet some of you personally, individually, under specific circumstances. Indeed, over the first 100 days of my assumption of duty, I wanted to listen to some outstanding members of the African civil society, given what you represent. The fact that we have you all gathered here today, you, actors, and members of the philanthropic societies of Africa, civil society of Africa, representatives of the diaspora, it is for me an exceptional opportunity to discuss with you frankly, to discuss with you directly about the major challenges regarding our continent's development, to which I know you accord special importance. Rest assured, therefore, that I have always been keenly attentive to your day-to-day actions as members of civil society, dynamic members of the diaspora, and committed philanthropic associations. Your role is irreplaceable in that regard. Ladies and gentlemen, our meeting this afternoon is taking place in a particular context marked by geopolitical tensions and uncertainties about international trade. Despite this unfavorable environment, African economies have been resilient. So real GDP growth should stabilize around 4.3% in 2026 before reaching 4.5% in 2027. Yet, among the most outstanding economic performances across the world, 12 countries have been in Africa. We must pay special attention to our 4 cardinal points, which is a new vision of the African Development Bank, and which also defines the contours or the path for the transformation processes we want to carry out within the African Development Bank group. Our meeting today is happening just a few months after the adoption of the Abidjan Consensus by the main actors of Africa's financial ecosystem. This marks the advent of the new African architecture for development that hinges on 4 principles: notable complementarity, subsidiarity, coordination, and de-risking. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished members of philanthropic associations, civil society, and diaspora, like you can notice, we have several reasons to strengthen our cooperation. Indeed, if we want to make real our ambition of an Africa that is transformed, prosperous, and resilient, in that regard, I am particularly convinced that we can work hand in gloves and achieve outstanding and concrete outcomes on cross-cutting issues such as the empowerment of women, supporting SMEs, youth-friendly initiatives, access to water and sanitation. The fact that you work closer with communities, the fact that you have sound knowledge of field realities, the trust you instill in resource mobilization has placed you as legitimate and unavoidable partners to achieve the 4 cardinal points of the new African financing architecture. Rest assured that you, as civil society players, representatives of diaspora and philanthropic associations, will always have the keen attention of the African Development Bank and that of my teams. And we are resolved to work together with you to bring the necessary transformations on our continent. I am therefore counting on you as well to convey the realities of the perceptions of the actions of the African Development Bank and even its weaknesses that we could remedy together. Together, therefore, we will address the challenges of Africa's development and structural transformation. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, for this address, for these salient words you have pronounced. Well, Mr. President, would like you to stay here with us for a photograph. Maybe other members will join the President of the African Development Bank for the photo.
Maître. Merci une fois de plus, Monsieur.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. You have recalled a critical truth, a founding truth indeed, that our dear Africa cannot achieve the transformation it needs without the adequate instruments. We are having the official group photograph. Thank you for accepting to have this photograph with us, Mr. President of the African Development Bank.
Merci pour cette belle photo souvenir. Guy Roland, j'attends ton signal, c'est bon? Merci. Merci. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
So we have had the group photograph with the President of the African Development Bank. The President of the African Development Bank has a busy schedule, so he may leave the room now after paying a vibrant tribute to African civil society, to African philanthropic organizations, and to African diaspora. At this juncture, I will also want to request members of the panel to move over to the high table and take their seats respectively. Mr. Nabole Suleiman, please.
Pendant ce temps, Sarah Maka s'apprête pour prendre.
Mr. Sarah Maka and Maître Sidibé Diarra.
Je vous rappelle que nous sommes.
Note that we are live on the various African Development Bank digital platforms.
Ensemble des plateformes digitales de la banque et pendant que Monsieur le Président du groupe de la Banque africaine.
The President of the African Development Bank will leave the room at this juncture. With him, the African Development Bank continues to thrive, and the momentum gathered so far is irreversible. Now back to our panel. We have our panel is ready. We have Mr. Didier Akwete with us. He is Special Advisor of the President, Coordinator of the new African Financial Coordination for Development. I think you know him very well. He has shaped, he has built talents, and he is today working on the African financial architecture. Also with us on the panel is Mr. Suleiman Naboli, who is technical advisor and in charge of the resource mobilization and budgeting program of the Ministry of Finance in the Republic of Burkina Faso. He has a wealth of experience with financial and development institutions as well as in the world of diplomacy. I hope you are comfortable and welcome to this panel. Also with us is Barrister Fatoumata Sidibé. She is a co-founder of Mansa Think Tank. She is one of the major personalities that is shaping Africa's citizenship, commitment, views, and policies. She is an African without any complex, and she has shown courage in her every actions. Like we say in Mali, our dancer. Lastly, and but not least, is Sarah Maka.
When she landed today, let me say by lunchtime. Welcome again. Despite a busy schedule, she said, this is not to be missed. And she made it. She really made it. No wahala, please feel comfortable. Distinguished invités, mesdames et messieurs, nous allons...
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we will get into the core of our session. So you said we should continue. How do we are speaking with the coordinator of the African Financial Architecture for Development, Mr. Didier Akwete. So you are therefore at the center of ANAFAD structuring. So I want to know from you, sir, what are the key messages and the major trends that civil society, philanthropic associations, and diaspora should take home regarding ANAFAD? Thank you for your question. Our moderator is very poetic, you know, and very eloquent as well. Like he rightly said that I am responsible for coordinating ANAFAD. This is work that began several months ago and work that is still in process. Like the president said, it aims at shifting the trends from a fragmented world towards more coordinated activities, a situation where various players play their roles clearly. Regarding civil society players, who are major players in terms of monitoring of continent-wide activities, given that they operate closer to populations who are the actors who are transforming Africa day to day. This may look like a distant subject matter when we talk about populations, but this time it is different. Why is it different? Because we are speaking in terms of mobilizing resources. We are talking about $4 billion available. That maybe not be mobilized totally, but part of this can be mobilized. At the same time, we have financial needs for enterprises, for infrastructure, for addressing environmental issues. You know that without available resources, it will be very difficult to address these issues. Let me take the example of NGOs or the entities that are closer to young entrepreneurs on the ground, women working in rural areas. First of all, we notice that there is a problem of access to resources. Broadly speaking, it can be energy-related resources, water resources, financial resources, human resources. You can remedy all this only by providing minimum financial resources. And for an institution like the African Development Bank, you know, its mission is to support development and break barriers. So if we need relays to do that, you know, I talked about resources available on the continent. Once we have these resources, we need entities that can channel these resources to the beneficiary populations. And that is why civil society or organizations are key. Organizations under our architecture, because we will use them to channel the resources towards our population. You know that the needs are numerous and diverse. African population as well is numerous and diverse, and they contribute to the development of the continents. Regarding the issue of philanthropic organizations, we have numerous philanthropic organizations in Africa, but I often say that every person here in this hall is a philanthropist, because you give money to the family when they are ill, you give money to attend to issues in your villages. So by nature, we are philanthropists. But if we can better articulate this philanthropic drive, generosity, because it is all about generosity, we need therefore to set up adequate instruments and scale them up to productive projects, transformative projects. So philanthropic organizations are important. We have some billionaire philanthropists whom we know today and that are volunteering for the benefit of the population. But I think each and every one of us has this philanthropist's dimension which we can use for our development. It is also important because today we have the diaspora that provides resources to the tune of up to $80 billion per year to the continent through remittances. Thank you. You have talking about different actors and how to align their responsibilities. Like you said clearly, the diaspora. We have with us Mr. Nabole. His country, Burkina Faso, recently launched a major initiative, that is diaspora bonds, which will make it possible, therefore, to its nationals to take part in the development of their country. Can you share with us what are the levers of this initiative and what are the expectations by 2022, 27, 28?
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to begin by thanking the African Development Bank for giving this opportunity to Burkina Faso to talk about what is happening in my country. So, my brother, comrade Bakanabo, Minister of Finance, would have liked to be here, but couldn't make it, unfortunately. So, our popular revolution, led by Captain Traoré, launched what we called, as the advisor has said, something based on transfers to families, make it a true investment project, and our diaspora living outside of Burkina Faso and other actors have an opportunity in this project, not to be just spectators, but to be investors in Burkina Faso. This means that what we call the diaspora bond will participate in impactful projects. And you know the Ouagadougou Highway, you have the hydroelectric dam, you have agro-industry infrastructures and the implementation of some industrial units. So we are reconnecting with our diaspora and the friends of Burkina Faso. We have indeed operationally tried to make everything we're doing very accessible. It's just, people can just contribute as low as 10,000 CFA to this national action. So what is important here is to make our diaspora bond a compact with the diaspora and our citizens. And through this lever, we want to create a new Africa, an Africa where boys and girls and men and women can hold hands to build a common destiny. So We are fully involved in NAFAD and practically involved. And we have 125 billion and 115 billion in 2027, totaling about 240 billion that we will contribute. Thank you very much. You have been very eloquent about the financial resources that you want to put on the table.
Et à cette étape, je voudrais rappeler que nous sommes en direct sur toutes les...
Yes, let me remind you that the bank's platforms are all open to us now. Everybody is listening to us. And other people are listening on YouTube.
Citizen in Harare. Let me read it as I receive it. What does NAFAD represent today as a major shift in Africa's financial architecture?
Thank you,
Sarah.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Luther. Thank you, the African Development Bank, for having us here. And I have to say a special thank you to you, especially Monsieur Luther and Zainab and Banta. So what we see, and I think the president's articulation was really important, honesty, right? He wants a frank conversation, direct conversation. What we're seeing is that the global financial architecture as it was being created does not work for Africa. In many ways, many African countries were colonies when the global financial architecture was developed in 1920, the international tax laws were developed in 1945, the Bretton Woods institutions, and on and on and on. In fact, when you look at after the financial crisis in 2008, the definition of risk, according to the Basel III framework, which is the prudential regulation, an African country will always be risky according to that definition, because the definition of risk mirrors European economies, not African economies. So what is happening is, according to the world, Africa will be seen as less than it is. It's not incorporating our strengths. It's requiring things like historical data, which many countries don't have. So what NAFAD is trying to do is, if we paused and never did anything around the international global financial architecture, what can Africa do for itself? And I think that's really important. As you mentioned, there's about $4 trillion in assets under management by sovereign wealth funds, pension funds. And one of the needs from Africa for our development is $400 billion. But right now, our sovereign wealth funds are not always investing in Africa, right? The money is incentivized to be invested elsewhere. So the framework is saying, how do we bring that money in? It really typifies Africa's agency. What can Africa do for itself? And so I believe that we will have to have very frank conversations with many players within the African continent, because our behavior to date has not always favored how do we invest back in Africa. Our behavior in date chases capital, and capital is incentivized not to be within the continent. So we have to re-incentivize the capital so that we can use it, we can deepen our savings pool, we can use that to build roads and build infrastructure that we so readily need. I also wanted to add that as we think about the geopolitical structure currently today, so much is happening. And Africa still contributes 2 to 3% to the global GDP. That's 2 to 3% that we need to increase if we want to be respected globally. So one of the things we need to do is, how do we attract our internal resources to build things such as the Continental Free Trade Area, because we need to trade more with each other. How do we attract our internal resources to do more work around the infrastructure and human capital development? So NAFAD's goals and mission is very timely, and we need it desperately, because as we're sitting now, the global financial architecture does not work for Africa, and it needs to work for us.
Wow, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. You remind us that narratives matter, coalitions matter, and citizen ownership matters. Thank you very much. À présent,
Now I would like to turn to Maître Fatoumata Sidibé Diarra. You are the head of the organization of this dialogue since November 2025, and the COP20 dialogue in Abidjan, and we're talking about the roles of actors now. Mr. Nabule gave us a concrete example with the diaspora bond and the value added. How can you summarize the value added of this ecosystem, diaspora, philanthropies, and civil society? Following the example by NAFAD. Good evening, everybody. Mbote, everybody. I would like to mention something that the president said regarding the geopolitical upheaval in the world today. This is a politically important juncture in our history. In Africa, since independence, we haven't been able to put in place a financial system ensuring our financial sovereignty, and that is commensurate with our ambitions. And it's not too late, and we have the potential to do it. Look at our natural resources, our young people, and our talents. And until now, we haven't been able to really bring it to bear for the benefit of the African continent. These initiatives such as NAFAD, which is very important and deserves to be scrutinized and supported. But the initiatives such as NAFAD, as ambitious as it may be, can only succeed if it is supported by everybody, all hands on deck. Other initiatives have been very good, but they did not succeed. And for that to happen, all actors must understand it and support it. And civil society, diaspora, and philanthropies, all together, all these actors, as we have said, are very closer than everybody to the realities of the African people. And to talk about their value added, I believe that we can talk about the impact that these actors have in the field, because they are the ones who talk to the communities and know what their real needs are. We can talk about their value added in terms of inclusion, because we are expressing the voice. They are expressing the voice of the people. And accountability, among other principles. It's very important in that regard to include the civil society, as the president has said. Include them and talk to them. And the civil society is there to ensure the transparency of the manner in which we manage our resources and how it impacts the lives of our population. Of course, the diaspora is there and has a very important role. We're talking about dwindling official development aid. So we have to, and we are not capable of structuring the finances that we have and the potential that we have and have genuine development projects. We have to do that. There are opportunities there. There are many opportunities which I believe if the civil society and diaspora and philanthropies come together, we can add value to our efforts. Thank you very much, Maître. Yes, you mentioned subsidiarity, complementarity. Those are the principles that are important, and also reinvigorating NAFAD is very important. Now, regarding the executive director of what should we do in order to accelerate? Yes, we have to accelerate for the benefit of the populations. Now, what I like in NAFAD is that it is combined with other financial initiatives in Africa, and they are genuinely African. We're talking about young people, a demographic dividend. We're talking about women, and it's very important to support this initiative. And in terms of civil society, philanthropies, and diaspora, the first thing is to organize ourselves and take ownership of the content of NAFAD and begin by understanding it. You cannot convey a message that you not understand, and make sure the communities understand it and convey the message and nurture it. And also address the insufficiencies from one organization, that is the African Development Bank. We have to support the bank also. So what I would like to have at the end of the day is to know whether NAFAD has changed the daily lives of African citizens. That's the most important question. In terms of access to health, to education, transformation of value-added, access to energy, and food self-sufficiency. And I think, briefly, ownership of NAFAD in order to share its content and monitor what is happening also, and see how well it trickles down in terms of benefits to our populations. Yes, contribution to sensitization and the role of the populations as well. Thank you very much for all these principles that you have mentioned. I've noted that I'm coming, we started with Didier, we're coming back, and going back, going round.
Campaigning on our social media, because I have another question from the chats for you. Someone would like to know what one campaign is going to do or is intending to do to support NAFAD towards a fair and smooth implementation.
Thank you for that question. Je parle anglais. I think there are three things that are important and that we're going to be looking out for. As Madam Fatima said, it's so important that NAFAD is close to the people. They have to feel it, they have to see it. Otherwise, it's a concept in the air that people don't understand. So we're going to be looking for how do the normal African citizens feel NAFAD within the first few years of its existence. That's going to be important for buy-in from the people. That's the first thing. The second is the framing. Narratives are important. Where the message goes, the money follows. So what we're going to be talking about is, what is Africa doing for itself? And NAFAD is a good answer for this is what Africa is doing for itself. The third is transparency and holding feet to fire, right? So it's not going to be an easy road, but NAFAD has to be honest about what the obstacles are. We should all be aware that there's some challenges, and collectively we should be working through the challenges slowly, one by one. But that level of transparency about the journey is going to be important to carry both the citizens, the policymakers, the media along, so that we can change the narrative truly about what Africa is doing for itself. Thank you.
Excellent. You mentioned narrative plus framing. Very important. Thank you again, Sarah. Je reste
and still online, Mr. Advisor, technical advisor, Mr. Nabole. The listeners want to know, what is your secret? What is the secret for mobilizing large domestic resources? Can you give us 3 key factors for that success? You have the question. Thank you very much. Now, before I go into the details of that question, let me just very quickly comment on what has just been said. We need to have a civil society and very open-minded and patriotic citizens, very important for African development. As long as civil society is not a tool for helping the policy makers, we will never succeed. Let me just give you one simple example. Thank you. Congo is an oil-producing country with a lot of resources, and it is not easy to work on the best kind of contracts to the benefit of the country. And you need a huge budget. You need civil society to also support you and make sure that things change in the right direction. Let me come back to your question. Now, the three secrets for resource mobilization. Let me just begin by saying that under the guidance of Comrade President Captain Ibrahim Traore and enlightening leadership of Comrade Bakanabo, we mobilize domestic resources. We made it a budgetary imperative, but beyond that, we also have ensured that this is a lever for our economic sovereignty. And we need to have a solid economic base and sovereignty to succeed. And there are a few pillars. We started with digitalization, the first pillar of modernization. And in that regard, we modernized our tax administration and generalized all the declarations and telepayments. We computerized the entire system, land system, which is very important for our income and for public finances. And then the customs administration as well. We put in place integrated customs clearance systems and monitoring of goods by satellite, and also reduce the physical contact, which is a factor of fraud and corruption. And thirdly, we have tried to transform our public administration to be more accessible to users by putting in place payment platforms. We have Ardeka, which is a new payment platform, and it's very important. Now you don't even need a smartphone. With a simple SMS telephone, you can have access to pay your taxes now, or receive what is due from the administration. With the civil society, therefore, we have reorganized the various departments so that the customers of the administration can be closer and have faster access. We have revisited the code, our tax code. Now, it is true that we took advantage of the increase in the price of gold, but we are revising all the contracts regarding these mining activities. So we are sensitizing, generally speaking, by putting in place the sensitization days to educate people about their tax obligations. The ministers' offices and all pay their taxes. All the government's employees do so. And we are calling on everybody else to be mindful of their civic duties so that we can ensure our financial and economic sovereignty. And the main point is the putting in place of the Patriotic Support Fund from January 2023 and December 2025. That fund mobilized more than $1 billion over 3 years to finance. Yes, it's an open contribution. And civil society has oversight of it. The audit bench is involved, and the authority in charge of fighting against corruption, all of them have an oversight about these resources that are collected from the various actors and general citizens in order to ensure we have our solid national sovereignty. Thank you very much for these reforms and putting in place the conducive environment, digitalization, etc. You talked about 240 million from the diaspora and 1 billion now. This in CFA, and now $1 billion for the support fund. That's very good. I'm mentioning those figures because it's very important, because we are developing our strategic country documents, and as a project of the African Development Bank financed to the tune of 2 billion, and people look at each other and say, the African Development Bank, 2 billion CFA francs is not much money, but actually we're talking about dollars, and $2 billion, okay? That's very important to note. Thank you very much also for the figures you mentioned. Let us turn to Didier now. The President of African Development Bank said, Africa has resources. The issue is how to make sure that an institution such as NAFAD can be an accelerator. Well, NAFAD is a process. It's not a magic box where we put things and then we take out huge sums of money. So it's a process. Now, the African Development Bank, which is the biggest bank for Africa, and has a huge capacity to mobilize resources with its directors and shareholders who are doing a wonderful job of governance and resource mobilizations. And these resources will be deployed at several levels. You need to understand this. With also what we have, the guarantee schemes. If you are a contractor and you borrow money, well, you need to be mindful of whether or not you have the capacity to pay back. So, you know, a bank will not give you money if it's not sure that you can repay. But if we give you the guarantee to an investor, if an investor does that, or if a bank can do that, or a financial institution can do that, and say, okay, I trust this project and I trust this country. There's a notion of confidence which supports the process and leads to your receiving the loans that you need. So the bank has resources, and the issue of guarantee arises. And the instruments of NAFAD includes a guarantee which reassures the investor, whether they are local or international or local bank or local operator. So NAFAD is very important in that regard. It has a guarantee instrument, and our directors recently approved the principle of increasing the capital in that regard. This is a very important and positive point. This reassures investors so that the final beneficiaries, in fact, can have the resources that the bank can mobilize. And in terms of acceleration and the next stages, and you mentioned this, in fact, when the bank, African Development Bank, lends a commercial bank and says, okay, which says I'm going to re-lend to SMEs, you need to be sure that the resources go to those SMEs. And so the bank has to monitor the situation, and civil society also has a role to play in this. And the SMEs, women, expected to benefit from this financing that the African development has mobilized, and so that they can really benefit from it. It's not free money, you know. There's no free lunch here. Otherwise, you know, everything would be abused and it would not work. So beneficiaries must enjoy those resources based on the guarantee. We're talking about 400 billion now. The African Development Bank is not financing 400 billion, but it has a very important role in Africa's development. And the bank has a huge mobilizing capacity and is an actor that of confidence and can turn towards other actors such as insurers and other financiers who have the resources and who can help finance our projects. So we need to also be able to mobilize all those actors to support what the bank can do, and so that it can be stronger and be more impactful. It's an entire mechanism, an entire architecture with guarantee funds, insurers, etc., deposit schemes, etc. It should be inclusive, because NAFAD is not just a new organization that is being put in place because Africa can organize a spaghetti ball. If you can create as many organizations as you want, but you get lost in the final analysis. It's not a matter of just creating more organization, but use what you already have, better use it so that you can be more impactful. And finally, the president said, it is important to create jobs. And I saw young people in the room who are mindful of statistics and economics, etc. And the young people who enter the job market need these jobs. Africa must create these jobs for them. Congolese youth, long live Congolese youth. Yes, you're right. Because you are not as patient as the other generations, you young people. You need those jobs. We need to create these jobs, and we need resources. To do that, we need enterprises and companies and private sector. The state cannot do everything. And I know among you, some are businessmen, but some will not succeed. But at least we want to give you the resources so that you can try and make the effort, so that those who have the capacity, especially those businessmen around you, need those resources that will trickle down to you. And there's a huge financing deficit of $300 billion in order to stimulate job creation and business creation. And this has to be mobilized from somewhere. So we will give you the capacity. You need the capacity to understand, to test your talents and your capacities. It's not free. And in this is the entire process of NAFAD that is putting in the floor and rolling out for your benefit, so that mobilizing resources today from the private sector to create infrastructures and jobs for you young people. Young people, a round of applause for you. Thank you, Didier.
So, this has been a psychological booster, bring it down to clarity. That is youth employment, infrastructure development. This is it about the new African financing infrastructure for development. Thank you, Didier. I want to thank all those who are following us on the various digital platforms and who have been making their contributions. I am also certain that the questions you asked from the various platforms have been addressed by the members of the panel. I would like to give each member of the panel another 30 seconds before we close, and maybe to give a last word to share your very final thoughts before we close. All right, thank you for getting me the floor. Very briefly, for genuine partnership, we need to mobilize more. For actual sovereignty, we need to establish stronger cooperations among our states and within our states.
The times we're in are different. And for us to go as far as we want to go, we need to work differently. So we need to collaborate more, we need to be a lot more transparent, and we need to be a lot more rigorous with each other to achieve our impact.
Excellent. Let's do things differently. Thank you. Merci, Dibediara.
When I see these young people, I think that the time is rightful. And at Mansa, we have summarized this as rethink Africa, transform Africa, and inspire the world, because we have that potential. And the very last word from Didier, I will talk about the urgent need to act. We have no time to lose, because in 2050, we will have a large number of young people on the continent, which will be a time bomb if nothing is done. So we need to move fast and implement our actions now. Bravo, thank you very much. I thank all the members of the panel for their outstanding contributions. The young people in the room, can you give a shout? And so thank you. Can you go back to your seats? And thank you all. And thank you to all the members of the panel. Unless the members of the panel will come back for a group photograph. Like Didier said, this is time for urgent action.
Voilà, merci. Donc vous voyez que je fais tout pour entrer dans la photo, avec votre permission. Merci. Merci bien, merci. Alors nous allons aborder la dernière séquence.
We will now proceed to the last phase of our historic gathering this afternoon, which will be structured in 3 points very rapidly. First of all, the reading of a major declaration from civil society organizations, philanthropies, and the diaspora. This will be read by Dr. Augustine Yamshi, whom I would invite to kindly join us here on the rostrum. This is the official declaration of civil society organizations, philanthropic organizations, and the diaspora.
Declaration of civil society, philanthropic, and diaspora organizations, Brazzaville Call, 28th of May, 2026. We, the representatives of civil society, philanthropic organizations, and the diaspora, gathered here in Brazzaville on the occasion of the 61st annual meeting of the Board of Governors of the African Development Bank Group and the 52nd annual meeting of the Board of Governors of the African Development Fund. Participants on this 28th day of May 2026 in the event themed Civil Society Philanthropies and the Diaspora as Strategic Accelerators of the New African Financial Architecture for Development, NAFAD. Observing that the African Development Bank Group has entered a decisive phase of strategic transformation structured around 4 points. That is, mobilizing capital at scale to finance Africa's ambition, reforming Africa's financial architecture to strengthen its sovereignty and autonomy, leveraging the demographic dividend as a driver of economic transformation, developing resilient infrastructure adapted to Africa's needs. At the heart of this transformation lies the new Africa Financial Architecture for Development, NAFAD, which seeks to fundamentally reorganize the way capital is mobilized, allocated, and deployed across the continent. Recalling that the civil society, philanthropy, diaspora triptych is a high-impact ecosystem that cannot remain on the margins, and that we, its representatives, aware of the limitations of the current financial system, affirm our commitment to contributing to the success of the new African Financial Architecture for Development, NAFAD, while drawing lessons from past initiatives. Reaffirming our commitment to move forward in clarity, transparency, and accountability so that NAFAD becomes a powerful lever for the construction of inclusive, sustainable development for Africa and for its financial sovereignty. We hereby adopt this declaration and commit to 1. Deeply appropriate the vision, tools, and objectives of NAFAD in order to ensure shared understanding. 2. Disseminate information relating to NAFAD as closely as possible to communities in order to foster understanding and ownership. 3. Invite the African Development Bank to actively involve civil society, diaspora, and the philanthropic organizations from the design stage of development projects from the central to the local levels. 4. Affirm the need to effectively structure and mobilize our collective strengths by developing, in collaboration with the African Development Bank Group, a mapping of civil society, diaspora, and philanthropic actors to ensure credibility and coherence of approach. 5. Harmonize our initiatives in order to avoid fragmentations of efforts. 6. Analyze financial flows from the diaspora, philanthropy, and local savings, and propose appropriate mechanisms to capture and channel these resources towards the continent's emergence. 7. Affirm the importance of a coherent Africa financial architecture articulated at continental, regional, and national levels in order to respect the diversity of local realities and needs, while strengthening the principles of subsidiarity, gradualism, and complementarity. 8. Call for a rapid transition towards concrete and measurable implementations through initial small-scale initiatives before scaling up, alongside regular and transparent monitoring of results in order to build collective trust. Recall that inclusive transformation must build upon essential strategic drivers, notably human capital, through the empowerment of youth, the valorization of diaspora skills and gender equality. Priority sectors, notably health, education, energy, agriculture, digitalization, and the promotion of traditional and endogenous knowledge, the peace and security nexus, as well as the sustainable management of natural resources. We, from Brazzaville, this beautiful city of Brazzaville, launch a solemn call for Pan-African and community mobilization around the new African Financial Architecture for Development, NAFAD. Endorse NAFAD as a structuring framework for the transformation of the continent. Done in Brazzaville, this 28th day of May, 2026, the year of our Lord. Thank you. Mesdames,
So you can give a copy, you can hand over a copy of your declaration to Madame.
Et voilà.
OK. Il arrive.
Voilà, donc vous installez, il reviendra tout à l'heure. Merci bien, Chairman. Et pendant ce temps, je vais demander à... Merci encore, Chairman. Et à l'attention des jeunes, moi j'ai...
Now, I heard more about young people, who will be at the center of this process, notably young people, women, and local populations. This is a new dynamic that we need to reinforce. Now, I would like to request Madame Zeynep Touré to come over with a round of applause from all our participants. Madame Touré will formulate the bank's initial observations. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished partners, representatives of civil society, philanthropic organizations, and the diaspora, as well as governments. Before we close this session, permit me to highlight very briefly the major trends that have come out of our discussions. First of all, we were significantly marked by the speech of the President of the African Development Bank regarding the entire ecosystem, notably civil society, diaspora, and philanthropic organizations. He formulated a very clear, strong, and mobilizing message, that of a bank that is resolutely affirming that the continent's transformation will not be achieved without all its vital forces and the commitment of its people. The second major highlight was the discussion about the NAFAD, which is Africa's new financial architecture for development. This was the core of the panel discussion. NAFAD henceforth stands as a shared initiative among government, the bank, civil society, and the diaspora. What was also highlighted is the shared responsibility. Governments are aligned with this dynamic and recognize the need to work with civil society and all relevant stakeholders to make NAFAD successful. Such alignment is critical because it is the foundation of a more coherent and high-impact action. Through the declaration of civil society actors, we have also underscored the clear expectations, notably further inclusion, more accountability, and tangible outcomes and benefits for the population. NAFAD therefore stands as a collective action that is owned and shared by all relevant stakeholders. This is what has come out of our discussions. For our part, the African Development Bank, we will continue to support this African approach towards the new financial architecture for Africa's development. Thank you. Thank you very much for this robust message that you have delivered. And you have noticed with me that time is marching and passing fast, and time has come to close the session.
Acting Vice President for Agriculture, Human and Social Development, to join us here in the stage to conclude this amazing session. Dr. Martin. Nous pouvons applaudir pour Dr. Martin pendant qu'il nous rejoint à cette estrade pour les remarques de clôture. Thank you very much, Dr. Fritz. Thank you, VP.
Thank you very much, Luther. Good evening, everybody. Distinguished guests, governors, executive directors of the African Development Bank, leaders and representatives of civil society organizations, philanthropic foundations, diaspora networks, our distinguished panelists, colleagues, partners, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to first express my sincere appreciation to everyone gathered here in Brazzaville, as well as those joining virtually from across the African continent and beyond, for your patience, for staying with us until this late in the day. I would also like to say that what we witnessed here today was more than a panel discussion. It was a strategic conversation about Africa's future. A conversation about sovereignty, about ownership, about resilience, and ultimately about a kind of development architecture Africa must now build for itself. Ladies and gentlemen, today's dialogue comes at a defining moment. Across the world, development finance systems are under pressure. There are all sorts of global shocks. Geopolitical fragmentation, debt vulnerabilities, climate shocks, tightening financial conditions are reshaping the global order. But as Africans, we also understand something fundamental is happening. Moments of disruption can be moments of reinvention. And this is precisely the ambition the new African Financial Architecture for Development, NAFAD, is all about. NAFAD is not simply finance. It's about repositioning Africa from vulnerability to agency, from fragmentation to strategic coordination, from dependency to financial sovereignty. People should be the core of our development agenda, especially young people, and I see there are many of them here today. That is the reason why the role of civil society, philanthropy, and diaspora is so essential. These actors are not peripheral stakeholders. They are the strategic multipliers. They bring trust where institutions sometimes struggle to reach. They bring innovation where systems become easily rigid. They bring proximity where distance weakens impact, and hope when communities seek tangible change. Civil society is the oil that should lubricate the wheels of development. As Vice President responsible for Agriculture, Human and Social Development, allow me to say this very clearly. Development ultimately is measured in human lives improved, in food security strengthened, in healthy young lives that can live out their full potentials, in opportunities created for young people, in dignity restored to vulnerable communities. I've been to so many Sahelian communities, and when you see people move from humanitarian assistance to improve livelihoods, you begin to understand the value of development. In women empowered economically, in resilience built against shocks, in the ability of families to envision a better future. That is why inclusion matters. You cannot do development with just a small percentage of the population. Today, maybe only 10% of Africans have access to energy, light, good education, and the good things of life. We need to make it more universal. That is why today's dialogue matters, because the challenge before us is not one of diagnosis. Africa understands its challenges. Africa understands its potential. The challenge is now execution, turning vision into pipelines, turning commitments into instruments, turning declaration into measurable outcomes, turning collective aspiration into tangible transformation that we can see, that we can touch. The Brazzaville Declaration read today by Mr. Augustin Jamanshi is important, not only because it endorses NAFAD, but because it also sends a strong signal that civil society, philanthropy, and the diaspora are ready to move from consultation to co-construction. This is precisely the kind of coalition Africa needs. The African Development Bank remains fully committed to this journey. Through our 2024-2028 Civil Society Engagement Action Plan, our support to community-driven development, our investment in resilience, agriculture, youth and human development, and through the broader vision of the 4 cardinal points, we will continue working to strengthen partnerships that place people at the center of development. Because ultimately, development is not about balance sheets, it's about human dignity. Distinguished guests, as we conclude, allow me to leave one final proverb with you. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Today, Africa has chosen to go far. Together, we'll go farther in ambition, farther in unity, farther in sovereignty, farther in development impact, and we must go there together. Thank you again for your presence, for your engagement and commitment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, VP. Thank you, Dr. Martin. Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Dr. Martin.
We thank Dr. Martin Freggin for this brilliant conclusion, and we thank him for appreciating the Brazzaville Declaration. And our session come to an end, to a landing today, but the conversation will continue. Civil society will continue to have this dialogue with the executive or with the management of the African Development Bank. So at this juncture, I would like to thank again all the authorities who have honored us with their presence. Dr. Sidiki Ota, the President of the African Development Bank, Mr. Amidou Ouedraogo, the temporary governor representing the Minister of the Economy and Finance of Burkina Faso, who is here. Thank you once again, Mr. Ouedraogo, for honoring us. I want to thank all our panelists. I want to thank all the panelists who stayed until the last item, that was the reading of the declaration and the official closing by Dr. Martin Kigi. I also want to thank all the technical teams of the bank who are actually exercising the one bank policy, communication protocol teams. I would like to let you know as well that the success of the meeting we have just completed now attests to our high technical profile as well. You know, like in the theater, some of the major actors are behind the scene. I want to commend Karin, Pauline, who are coordinating events in this room from behind the scenes, all the teams and team members who have contributed to the success of our meeting. Like I said, this dialogue will continue. Thank you for your kind attention.